Hi everyone, this is GPY 101 Sustainability and Place. I'm Professor Lubimtseva, and in this second lecture, we are going to discuss energy sustainability. So what is the difference between renewable and non-renewable energy sources? Renewable energy is derived from resources that either replenish themselves over short periods or never run out, for example, sun, wind, biomass, hydro energy, and geothermal energy renew themselves indefinitely. On the other hand, non-renewable energy sources such as coal, oil, gas, and nuclear cannot be replaced at the time scale of their use. Although nuclear energy sometimes erroneously is defined as renewable energy, because the sources of nuclear energy are almost unlimited, this is still a non-renewable energy source. One of the main problems with non-renewable energy resources coming from the fossil fuels, such as coal and oil and natural gas, is not only the fact that they cannot be renewed, but also that they're contributing into climate change. Greenhouse gases trap heat and make our planet warmer. Human activities are responsible for almost all of the increase in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere during the past 150 years. Again, nuclear energy is not a part of fossil fuels, and it does not produce these harmful emissions that are contributing to climate change. But there are many other problems with nuclear energy, particularly its unsustainable waste and a very high risk of nuclear accidents. In the United States, greenhouse gas emissions come primarily from transportation, electricity production, industry, and to a lesser extent commercial and residential buildings and agriculture. So the total emissions in the United States in 2019 constitute 6,558 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions from human activities in the United States is from burning fossil fuels for electricity, heat, and transportation. You have heard before and read in our textbook about renewable, clean, green, and sustainable energy. I would like to clarify this terminology and emphasize some differences between these four terms. So renewable energy is produced from natural sources that never run out, such as solar, hydro energy, geothermal energy, and biomass from plant or waste material. Those are energy sources that can be indefinitely renewed. Clean energy is not necessarily renewable energy. Clean energy is electricity that does not create any greenhouse gases during its production, although it is not necessarily renewable and it is not necessarily sustainable. For example, biogas could be considered as clean, but it is not always renewable. Nuclear is not producing any greenhouse gases, but it's not sustainable because it produces nuclear waste, and it's not really renewable as well. Now, the term green also sometimes is used interchangeably with clean and renewable, but green energy is a subset of a renewable energy and represents generation of sources with the smallest environmental footprint, such as sunlight or wind or water. So the name can also include sometimes low-impact hydroelectric sources of energy or some specific forms of biomass. So it's somewhat more narrow term. So definitely nuclear energy is not green, or even some forms of renewable energy, if they have high foot environmental impact, can be not necessarily green. Let's now talk about advantages and disadvantages of both non-renewable and renewable energy sources. Let's start with traditional non-renewable energy sources. We are still using them. So why do we use them? Why this decarbonization of our economy seems to be sometimes so difficult? They have some advantages. They're high in energy capacity. They produce huge profits and have been generating huge profits through extraction and trade over more than 100 years. They're relatively easy to store, and they are still a source of employment for many people worldwide. However, many disadvantages of non-renewable energy highly outweigh these few advantages. First of all, they're damaging for the environment. They pollute water, they pollute air, they cause land degradation. Burning fossil fuels is causing global warming, and this is something that can be really detrimental for our civilization. They have many other problems. They are very dangerous for human health. They cause many diseases associated with air pollution and water pollution. They can be also dangerous in the process of their extraction. They take lots of other resources to generate it, especially water and energy as well. They produce lots of dangerous waste, which is extremely difficult to dispose. And as you know, they very often cause conflicts and economic volatility in many parts of the world. Think about how many wars have been fought because of coal, oil, or natural gas. They require also very expensive, sophisticated infrastructure, and they're plainly unsafe. Many arguments have been done that nuclear energy is a significantly better choice than energy extracted from fossil fuels. There are, again, advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons. It is certainly clean in the sense that it is zero carbon emission. It does not contribute anything into global climate change. It has high density, it is efficient, it is cost effective, and on the other hand, it generates nuclear waste, which is very hard to dispose. So this is something very unsustainable. Technically, nuclear energy is not a renewable form of energy, but because of its almost unlimited fuel supplies, sometimes it's classified as renewable energy. It has very high environmental and social impact. Think about some really devastating nuclear disasters that happened in the past. It is also very expensive to build and operate, and accidents and security risks happen, and they can be really very dangerous, sometimes devastating, huge parts of the world. Finally, nuclear energy also uses lots of water. Now, nuclear energy can be extracted both through nuclear fusion and nuclear fission, and I want to clarify the difference. So fission is the splitting of a heavy, unstable nucleus into two lighter nuclei. All nuclear power plants currently use nuclear fission, and most nuclear power plants use uranium atoms. Fusion is the process where two light nuclei combine together, releasing vast amount of energy. Technology to harness nuclear fusion as a source of energy for electricity generation is still the subject of ongoing research. Viability of controlling fusion reaction is really not clear, and it could be energy of the future, but this is still very far away to answer the question if it is viable, if it could be safe in future. Let's now talk about some renewable energy sources, starting with wind energy. Wind power is sustainable, renewable, green, and clean. Wind turbines produce energy directly from natural forces and create no carbon emissions or pollutants in the process. Wind energy creates well-paid jobs with no adverse health impacts and support energy independence and peace. Solar energy is also very sustainable and can be harnessed almost everywhere in the world. It is renewable, green, and clean, based on the definitions that we have agreed upon earlier. The cost of panels is quickly going down worldwide, and it is becoming very cost-effective, easy to install, and supports local energy independence, again, helping us to avoid political conflicts and wars fought for energy sources. Hydroelectric or water power is also renewable and clean, and it does not produce direct carbon emissions. Hydropower is actually one of the oldest sources of energy used for electricity generation. Until 2019, it was the largest source of total annual US renewable energy, which has been now surpassed by wind. It has, however, significant environmental and social impacts, especially when it comes to large, powerful dams. It is not always safe. It is not always safe for people or the environment. It contributes to water disputes and conflicts in many parts of the world. And all reservoirs can be sometimes sources of carbon emissions, such as methane. Another form of renewable energy associated with water resources is wave and tidal power. Gravity from the moon and the sun creates natural tide movements that generates tidal energy. And this is very high energy density that can be harnessed in the sea. It is reliable, it is very predictable, it is renewable and clean. There are no greenhouse gases or waste being generated. But it does have quite significant environmental impact through the infrastructure. So it's not totally green. And it is quite expensive, but easy to maintain once it is built. Another form of sustainable energy is geothermal energy. It is a sustainable and renewable source that is still largely untapped. It is very reliable using the temperature difference between the surface and the ground source of natural hot reservoirs. And it is very location specific as opposed to wind or solar that can be harnessed anywhere. So geothermal resources are available in some parts of the world, but not the others. It is not always green and clean because it requires lots of digging, lots of infrastructure. It may trigger earthquakes, and it has high environmental impact and sometimes social impact as well. It can cause greenhouse gas emissions, and it does require expensive infrastructure. But it does have huge potential in many parts of the world. For example, places like Iceland, sitting on the volcano, are entirely powered by geothermal energy. And finally, biogas. Biogas is produced when organic matter, such as food scraps or animal waste, is broken down by microorganisms in the absence of oxygen in a process called anaerobic digestion. Biogas is a renewable fuel that can be used in a variety of ways, including as vehicle fuel or for heating, electricity generation, and so on. And it is renewable because we would probably never run out of food waste. It is renewable and green in the sense that it has fairly low environmental impact. But technically, it is not clean because it still produces carbon emissions that go to the atmosphere. You can learn more about energy sustainability by draw down pages 18 through 36 and sustainability pages 63 through 31. I also recommend that you watch renewable energy video which is posted on the Blackboard, and I wanted to remind to participate in the required class discussion energy sustainability on the Blackboard and post your thoughts on your readings and response to your peers in class.